Now joining us on stage, from Nordic Fintech magazine, Head of Content and Chief Editor, Crespo.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see such a full house here in Vienna, and greetings to everyone that's following on the live stream. Where's the red light? I was told to look at the red light. Okay, there. Greetings from the beautiful city of Vienna. My name is Chris. I flew in yesterday from Copenhagen, and let's see if this is going to work. Yes, and as I was walking through the airport, I happened to grab a copy of the Financial Times. And then, if I'm carrying the Financial Times, I probably know what I'm talking about. I want to read you something that I found in an article here, so feel free to take notes. It says, the market is navigating significant turbulence driven by macroeconomic headwinds, including QT and persistent CPI prints above consensus. We're seeing substantial dislocation of fixed income with IG and HY spreads widening as the European Central Bank hawkish stance continues. The inversion of the 2 to 10 USD curve signals recessionary pressures, while CDS spreads are blowing out, particularly in EM sovereigns, reflecting heightened default risk, obviously. Equity markets are in state of repricing, particularly in sectors with stretched EV/EBITDA multiples. ETF flows are skewing towards defensive sectors, while structured products like CDOs are seeing liquidity constraints. And meanwhile, CLOs, or synthetic products like TRS, are underperforming as counterparty risk mounts. Now, luckily, commodities remain a safe haven with gold and WTI seeing inflows amidst the ongoing flight to quality. Did anyone catch any of what I just read? That's the problem with wealth management today. Because you see, traditionally, wealth management has built a barrier for the average people. And the first, it starts with language. They built all these acronyms, these terms that are so difficult to understand that basically it's reserved for only a few insiders that know what any of that means. I've been living in Copenhagen for the past 9 years. I moved from London. I moved because I was offered a job at Nordea, which is one of the biggest banks in Nordics. And when I first moved there, I thought, amazing, I'm going to work for a bank. So I had a moderate amount of savings. I joined the bank and I thought, awesome, I'm going to get a meeting with the wealth management advisor to open a wealth management account at the bank. After all, I'm an employee. I should be able to get an account. So there I went. I got to the meeting. The person very, very kindly greeted me. So I just took out my savings. And I said, please, can I have a wealth management account? And this person looked at me and said, sorry, how much money do you have? I said, well, just this much, it's all my savings. And then he very kindly said, well, maybe you would like to speak to your retail advisor about opening a savings account. I was shocked. I was being turned down by my bank. He said, unfortunately, Chris, in order to qualify for a wealth management account, you need to have at least 500,000 euros of assets under management. So the barriers to entry into wealth management have been insanely high. Traditionally, this has been reserved only for the ultra-rich. Not only that, but the fees that sometimes we have to pay for having an account management are really high. And this is because traditionally, in the banking sector, this is what we call a high-touch service. If you wanted to have an investment portfolio, you needed to have an advisor that understands your risk profile, that understands your preferences when it comes to portfolio. And in general terms, they would just basically end up putting you up in a standard account, which is either vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, or raspberry, right? But this requires a high investment from the bank, and therefore it makes it highly prohibitive for most average people like ourselves to have an investment account. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, financial literacy across Europe is really, really poor. So this is a survey that was done by the European Commission, by the Eurobarometer, that showed that in Europe in general, on average, only 18% of people score highly when it comes to financial literacy. In most cases, around 64% are able to answer maybe 2 or 3 questions out of 5 when it comes to very simple questions about interest rates, simple questions about state bonds, about inflation. So this represents a real barrier for the average people to get into investment. Now, luckily, technologists, armed with coding capabilities, armed with the ability to simplify things and make things frictionless, said, don't worry, we've got this. And following a little bit in what they did with information, they've democratized access to investment. And democratization is all about making things that have been traditionally reserved for only a few, widely available for the broader audience. In this case, they use wide access, diverse voices, real-time sharing, peer-to-peer learning, content creation, and they've put that to the accessibility to people like us through new investment platforms. And that's amazing. And there's a great example here from a company called Public.com in the US that on top of building an investment platform that is easily available for everyone, they've also built in certain social features, Twitter-like. So people can actually go and like people's transactions, they can comment on them, and they can share strategies. So this is all well and good because thanks to technologists, wealth management is finally being democratized and being accessible to people like you and me. Except that there's a problem. And the problem is that most of us, when it comes to investment, we're really stupid. And we're really stupid because we are prone to things like cognitive biases that behavioral economists have been studying for years. In fact, they found over 100 different behavioral and cognitive biases that impact our ability to make decisions under risk. And I'm not going to go through all 100 of them, but I've selected 3 of them that I thought is worth pointing out so that you can understand some of the intricacies and the complications that they're facing when bringing these products to the mass market. The first one is the recency bias. You might have heard about this. And basically, recency bias is it leads investors to place more importance on recent events rather than on old events. So imagine an investor after seeing that tech stocks are rising, they thought, oh, okay, well, they're rising, I'll put all my savings into these tech stocks, only to find out that a few weeks later, the stocks plummet. This is equivalent to thinking, oh, it's been sunny all week, therefore it's never going to rain again. See, it's an illogical snafu of the mind that causes us to make poor choices when it comes to making decisions under risk. The second one this is called the herd mentality bias. And this is the kind of the kind of bias that leads individuals to mimic actions just because everyone else is doing them. So when we are prone to herd mentality, we see everyone going in a particular direction, and we think, they must know something that I don't, so I must go and copy them. Right? And this is something that can impact investors, for example, when there's bubbles or when there's crashes. In investment, you traditionally want to buy low and sell high. But what happens in a bubble? Prices start to rise, and everyone thinks like, oh, someone knows something that I don't, and then you go and then you buy high. And in a crash, prices start to drop, and then you go and then you sell low. Again, a behavioral and a cognitive bias that can affect our ability to trade effectively. And the third one I wanted to highlight, this is called the IKEA effect. Now, I know Marla from JP Morgan later today is going to be talking about this, so I won't give you too much information so that you stay tuned to what she's going to say. But needless to say, this is also an effect that causes us to hold on to things that we've spent time in. So if we decide to spend a lot of time researching a particular stock, we're more likely to hold on to that stock, even if the stock is underperforming. So these are 3 cognitive biases that technologies have also decided to address to technology. So we have in one hand, technologists writing code to simplify things, and in the other hand, technologists using code to remove some of these biases from the experience. And what I want to share with you, it's the case of one of such technologies. This is a guy called Michael something. He's a programmer turned YouTuber turned investor, and he faced a similar problem, and he decided to teach his goldfish to trade. Let's have a look.
I don't know how to trade stocks, man. I lost all my money on Robinhood. I had no idea what I'm doing. If only there was something that could trade stocks for me. Hi, I want to give my goldfish Frederick the ability to trade stocks. This is my idea. Right. We track Frederick's position anywhere he is in the tank. Then, every morning when the stock market opens, he'll be prompted with 2 random companies. He'll choose one by spending more time on that side of the tank. Then, the computer will take his decision and buy that stock with the money of whoever is sponsoring this video. But before any of that, we need to track fish. You might think I built my fish tank against a blank white wall because it provides ample lighting and doesn't overstimulate my fish. Wrong. I did it so I can write the detection software to just look for orange pixels of the fish. And honestly, that was most of the hard part. I just added some random stuff like the tickers and some logic, and I think we're ready to test it without actual money, because I don't know if it works.
All right, so we'll get back to Michael and his goldfish in a minute. But I want to show you now what technologies are doing to address some of the issues that we discussed already and to build really cool features in some of the applications that we've seen popping up around the world. Now, you must know that I don't work for a fintech, I don't work for a bank, I don't develop products, I cover the market. And thanks to that, I've had the opportunity to speak to hundreds and hundreds of visionaries and disruptives in this industry. So hopefully some of these I might be able to bring in the presentation today. So this is perhaps one of my favorite features. It's a feature that was made famous by a company called eToro out of Israel. You might have heard about them. So eToro has now 33 million customers that invest in their platform. And they became particularly popular because they developed something called copy trading. Copy trading is super cool. Let's say that you don't know anything about trading, but you have some money and you want to invest it. So through copy trading, what you can do is you can decide to have your portfolio mimic exactly what someone else's portfolio is doing. And this has given birth to the Finfluencer. And the Finfluencer are people in the eToro platform that have done particularly well, that the platform has highlighted as saying, look, this person has had a year-on-year return of 105% or 94%, and then other people can say, copy their portfolio. And what the platform automatically does is that in proportion to what I have in my portfolio, they would execute exactly the same trades that that person is doing. Now, what's really interesting here is that a lot of celebrities and sports people have jumped into the platform, and they've managed to amass a significant amount of followers, of people who think that because someone is good at singing or at sports, they must also be good at investment. Anyway, it's a great functionality for someone that doesn't have any knowledge, that has some money, that doesn't really want to learn the lingo, or doesn't want to learn how to invest, and that still have the opportunity to build wealth to these new type of services. Such a person is this gentleman here called Stephen Bliss. He used to run a food truck. As you can see it there at the back. He used to flip burgers and then decided to start investing in eToro with a modicum amount of £3,000. He found that he was rubbish at it. He lost most of his money. But thanks to copy trading, he was able to get back on track, amassing a significant amount of money. At the height, he made £9 million just from investing in this. And of course, those £9 million have enabled him to spend less time flipping burgers and more time on the platform. So this is actually something that can be used by average individuals like ourselves to learn how to invest. Let's talk about now automated investment management. And this is all done through robots, through robo-advisors who have become extremely popular. But imagine this situation. Let's say that you have a portfolio and it's Sunday evening and you're particularly concerned about a stock because there was some event over the weekend. You want to get some advice on what to do with the stock. But your advisor is not available until the next day, at least 12 hours from now. And even then, you are not sure you're going to be able to get them on the phone on Monday morning. So what do? You turn to robo-advisors. And robo-advisors, through a set of algorithms and set of preferences that you can define yourselves with regards to your appetite, your risk appetite and your portfolio preferences, can then go and say, yes, this is a stock that you want to keep. This is a stock that you perhaps want to get rid of. And therefore, removing the stress that a lot of people, especially first-time investors, feel when they are trying to get advice from a professional, and also removing the need to have them live on the phone, right? Another great functionality that helps us with the issues and the cognitive biases that we can have, and that make investment simple and frictionless. Now, let's get back to Michael and Frederick, his fish. Now, I have to warn you, he swears a lot, so I had to beep out quite a lot of what he says. But he was not content only with teaching the fish how to trade stocks. He also wanted to test whether there was another mechanism that could automate trading based on user sentiment. So he builds a system that goes through the web, scrolls Reddit, and then makes investments based on what the web is talking about. So let's have a look at it.
To train a sentiment analysis bot, you need a lot of labeled data, so a lot of samples of text that are labeled positive or negative by a human. There are a lot of these data sets out there that are publicly available, but the text is like normal person talking. Wall Street bets,
They talk about tendies and YOLO and boomers.
Hands or paper hands.
Stongs, that's YOLO.
very unique vocabulary. Therefore, I needed to make my own data set using their weird Wall Street Bets language. So I went to r/Wall Street Bets, sorted by top of all time, downloaded the top 10,000 posts, and all that's left to do was to label them as positive or negative. So I sat down with a nice cup of coffee and labeled the data myself. No, that would have taken 4 or 5 hours. That's stupid. Instead, I spent an entire month learning the React web framework and building a website that would allow users to log in and label the data for me. Then I tweeted asking Wall Street Bets members to give me their Reddit usernames. I then plugged those usernames into the Reddit API, got the top 10 accounts with the most Reddit karma who were active on Wall Street Bets. Those 10 people labeled 1,000 posts each, 10,000 posts total, and created the data set for me. And that's how you turn a 5-hour task into a 1.5-month task. Because I'm a programmer, and that's what we do. I use that data set to train a sentiment analysis bot, and now every morning when the fish is trading stocks, this bot is going on r/Wall Street Bet. It's looking through the top posts of the day until it finds one it likes, and then it buys the stock that that post is talking about. So that's how that works.
There we go. We'll come back to Michael and his fish, and we'll see how they flare, how the sentiment analysis flares against the goldfish. But before we do that, let's talk about some other features that I find particularly enticing from the platforms that have been launching investment solutions. This comes from a company in the US called Acorns. And what they've done is that they've enabled micro investments by rounding up your expenditure. It's very simple. So if you pay with something with your card, let's say that you go and buy a coffee for $4.75. What it does is it rounds it up to the next dollar. And once you reach $5 of roundups, then it puts that money automatically into an investment account. You have to answer some questions again about your risk preference and the type of portfolio you want to invest in. But this all happens automatically, seamlessly in the background without you having to move a finger. The platform has been so popular that since its inception in 2014, users have invested 15.5 billion US through micro investments. Again, removing all the complexity, removing all the cognitive biases, and doing everything for you with minimum effort. Another great example that we've seen is the syndicated fractional ownership. Marty talked about this earlier today. But let's say that you want to invest in a real estate project. Traditionally, those are reserved only for institutional investors or people with really deep pockets, right? There's a company in Sweden called Cameo that is now giving average people the opportunity to invest in the construction of new skyscrapers, shopping centers, housing complexes, etc. It works very simply. You can start for as little as 50 euros, and that fractional ownership on that project gives people the ability to crowd lend money towards the developers. What's really cool about this is I spoke to the CEO of this company in Denmark, is that people have built a community around it. So by investing in it, they feel that they own part of it. And then you have people posting photos saying, oh, the next floor of the skyscraper has gone up, or the windows in the mall has been put together. And that just creates an ownership type of environment that really engages people into the investment of these products and services. And of course, eventually, when the real estate project goes up in value, whatever investment they put in also benefits them. The last example, I thought this was particularly relevant since the US is electing a president today. This is Robinhood that has enabled people to buy options through their platform. And basically what an option does is, let's say that you pay a certain fee to have an option to buy or sell a stock based on a particular outcome and a future event. So you can all now do that automatically through the Robinhood platform. Depending on who wins, that option is executed, and then it's basically a contract that you establish, and you have the option to offload to buy or offload certain stocks at a previous price point, right? Again, super simple. This is traditionally stuff that requires quite a lot of understanding of the market, but through these platforms, it can be done by anyone with minimum knowledge of the market. Now, let's get back to hear the conclusion of Frederick the Fish and see how it flares, again, the sentiment analysis automated in the marketplace.
Let's get back to the competition and see which one is better at trading stocks. This is
now.
crazy stuff going on. Interesting buy from Wall Street Bets. I don't know if the GameStop play is going to work out.
People love games, Michael. Big tank from Wall Street Bet could be like another 9/11 situation. Fish is going crazy buying Costco and Facebook.
Meta now.
It's a crazy day. There's a lot of volatility right now.
Very confusing. I don't know where this one's going to go.
Peaks and the valleys for Wall Street Bets. It's better. It's better than bigger than anyone. They can win. Big fall.
What the? What was that? What was that? Huge! It's not looking good for Wall Street Bets right now at all. What is that? What is that?
This could be it.
It's climbing.
It's the comeback.
It's climbing. It's to the moon. It's gonna break through. Oh. It died. The fish won! You Wall Street Bets on by a fish!
So there you have it. I think we're living really exciting times where finally services that had previously been reserved only a few are now accessible to all of us. So I invite you all to try one of these platforms. You don't have to put a lot of money in it. Try it, get educated, start learning the ropes of how the system works. And hey, after all, if a goldfish can do it, so can you. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, Chris. I think I learned more from you than the last 2 years for investment. So let's go quickly through the Q&A, please. If you have any question for Chris, please raise your hand and we will get you a microphone. Do we have any question? Here. It's coming, yeah. No.
Chris, thank you very much. It was great. I would like to, you are a media expert, obviously, and I would like to ask you to put a bit of focus on the problematic side of this fin influencer. I'm coming across many of them in Instagram, for instance, and they're promising return at 30% monthly. We all know it, we're in the industry, that this is literally a fraud. But obviously, there is so much content out there, and especially for young people that miss the knowledge, this is a very appealing promise. So give us a bit of few words about that part, because I think it is a problem. It may become a problem. That's, for instance, someone we need to counteract as financial industry, as apps, as fintech, because we do things in a legit way. We are honest and we try to be extremely meaningful for our customer. But obviously there is something in there. Can you spend a few words about this? And not just the funny part, but also the serious, or let's say, the complexity part of it.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a very good point, especially with TikTok, right? Because a lot of people are now taking investment advice from influencers on TikTok. And the problem with this is that this could be any random person that decides to put a channel, that decides to put some fake numbers forward, and that could actually move masses. Not least, manipulating markets, depending on how popular they are, but it's not validated advice. Now, what I would say is that there is still, the financial services industry has always prided itself in trust. So I think when looking at what these companies are doing and when looking at the finfluencer model, we still need to be able to validate the trustworthiness of whoever is advising us for investments. That's why I like the eToro example, right? Because even though it's created a social hierarchy of investors, you could actually see, based on the movements in the platform, real data on how they performed in the past. Now, we have to understand that even if we choose to copy trade, from the example of eToro, there is still risk. Even if someone performed really, really well, that could also be a bias, the recency bias. The fact that someone has performed really well in the past doesn't mean that they will continue to perform well in the future. There's always inherent risk, but I would definitely say that it's always worth seeing and testing and doing your research as to who you're following if you choose to follow the advice of some third party, preferably being backed up by the reliability and the trustworthiness of a financial institution.
Great, thank you. So do we have any other question here on site? If not, I'm going to ask you one from our remote attendees.
Sure.
So, Chris, how do you see design evolving in these platforms to accommodate both novice investors and more seasoned users seamlessly?
I think that's a very good question, and I will refer also to what Mari was saying this morning. It's about language. And it's not just the spoken language, but the visual language. the example I gave this morning is just to show that we need to be able to get clear in the way in which we communicate. We need to be able to communicate for the average layman. And that involves what words we use, how complex we make our visual interfaces, how complex we make the navigability of tools and services, how easy can I find the information that I'm looking for, and overall, just how relatable do I make my content with that of the average person that is trying to get a hold of my services. So I think this simplicity and this frictionless is not just about the flow, it's about the way in which we communicate and simplifying the way that we engage our audience.
Yeah, and UX for sure, it's crucial.
Totally.
So we have time for one more question. If so, please raise your hand here on site. And if not, I go for a question remote, another one. This one is maybe a bit tricky. Can you discuss any particular data privacy concerns that we, UX designers, should anticipate when designing for, I don't know, like open banking APIs?
Ooh, okay. I'm not a data expert. I wouldn't feel comfortable actually saying anything in regards to that because I would probably be just making it up. So sorry about that's.
Maybe I can move to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try now.
So what role do you see UX design playing in establishing user trust in these tech-driven investment tools compared to traditional banks?
Right. So I think I go back to what I was saying earlier. So the trustworthiness is also about the clarity of the communication. And I think we've all used applications that where after playing with them for a couple of minutes, you're lost, you don't really know where you are, you don't really know how to go back, some of the functionality doesn't work, the language is impenetrable. So it's the trustworthiness comes when you say, when you can see that, all right, let me take a step back. Financial services are complex, investment is complex, coding is complex. But when an organization has gone through the trouble of absorbing that complexity into the back end and presenting you with a very clear, very simple, very elegant front end, that conveys trust. That means that someone is being meticulous enough, is being careful enough to give you an optimal user experience by absorbing something that is inherently complex. And that, I think, is a signal of trustworthiness.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Chris, and
thank you very much.
See you soon.